Hi boys and girls, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we will be reading Chapter 8 of Pippi in the South Seas. Chapter 8 is called Pippi Talks Sense to a Shark. Let's find out what happens. Very early the next morning, Pippi and Tommy and Anika crawled out of their hut. But the Kerkerdut children had been up still earlier. They were already sitting under the coconut tree, excitedly waiting for their new friends to come out and play. They talked in rapid Kerkerdut and laughed, their teeth flashing in their dark faces. The whole crowd trooped down to the beach with Pippi at the head. Tommy and Anika jumped up and down with delight when they saw the beautiful white sand, where they could dig themselves down, and the blue sea which looked so inviting. A coral reef a short distance from the island served as a sea wall. Inside, the water lay still and mirror-like. All the children threw off their scanty clothing and, shouting and laughing, dashed down into the water. Afterward, they rolled around in the white sand, and Tommy and Anika and Pippi agreed that it would have been much nicer to have really dark skin because the white sand on a dark background looked so funny. But when Pippi had dug herself down in the sand up to her neck so that only a freckled face and two red pigtails stuck out, that looked quite funny too. All of the children settled themselves down in a circle to talk to her. "Tell us about the children in the northern land you come from," said Momo to the freckled-faced girl. "They love pluffication," said Pippi. "It's called multiplication," said Anika. "And besides," she said, somewhat miffed, "no one can say that we love it." "Northern children love pluffication," Pippi insisted stubbornly. "Northern children become frantic if northern children don't every day get a large dose of pluffication." She didn't have the strength to continue in broken Kerkerdut, but switched over to her own language. "If you hear a northern child cry, you can be sure that the school has burned down, or that a school holiday has been declared, or that the teacher has forgotten to give the children homework in pluffication. And let's not even talk about the summer vacation. That brings such tears and wailing you wish you couldn't hear it. No one is dry-eyed when the school gate slams closed for the summer. All the children slowly head for home, singing sad songs, and they can't keep themselves from sobbing when they think that there will be several months before they can get any multiplication again. Yes, it is a misery, the like of which you can't imagine," said Pippi, and she sighed. "Bah!" said Tommy and Anika. Momo didn't quite understand what pluffication was, and didn't want to have a more detailed explanation. And he did want to have a more detailed explanation. Tommy was just about to explain it, but Pippi got in ahead of him. "Yes, you see, it's just like this. 7 times 7 equals 102. Fun, eh?" "It most certainly is not 102, said Anika. "No, because 7 times 7 is 49, said Tommy. "Remember that we're on Kerkerdut Island now," said Pippi. "Here we have an entirely different and much more flourishing climate, so 7 times 7 gets to be much more here." "Bah!" said Tommy and Anika again. The arithmetic lesson was interrupted by Captain Longstocking, who came to announce that he and the whole crew and all the Kerkerduts were going off to another island for a couple days to hunt wild boar. Captain Longstocking was in the mood for some fresh boar steak. The Kerkerdut women were also going to go along to scare out the boars with wild cries. That meant that the children would be staying behind, alone on the island. "I hope you won't be sad because of this," said Captain Longstocking. "I'll give you 3 guesses, said Pippi. "The day that I hear some children are sad because they have to take care of themselves without grown-ups. Well, that day I'll learn the whole pluffication table backward, and I promise to that." "That's my girl," said Captain Longstocking. Then he and all his grown-up subjects, armed with shields and arrows, got into their big canoes, and paddled away from Crocodile Island. Pippi rounded her hands into a megaphone and shouted after them, "May peace be with you! But if you aren't back by my 15th birthday, I'll send an SOS call over the radio!" When they were alone, Pippi and Tommy and Danica and Momo and Moana and all the other children looked happily at one another. They were going to have the whole wonderful South Sea Island all to themselves for several days. "What are we going to do?" said Tommy and Danica. "First, we'll get our breakfast down from the trees," said Pippi. Like a flash, she was in a coconut tree, shaking coconuts down. Momo and other Crocodile children gathered breadfruit and bananas. Pippi made a fire on the beach, and over it she roasted the wonderful breadfruit. All the children settled around in a circle and had a substantial breakfast consisting of roasted breadfruit, coconut milk, and bananas. There were no horses on Crocodile Island, so all the native children were very much interested in Pippi's horse. Those who dared went for a ride on him. Moana said that one day she would like to go to the northern island, where there were such strange animals. Mr. Nilsson wasn't anywhere in evidence. He had gone off on an excursion to the jungle, where he had met some relatives. "What are we going to do now?" asked Tommy and Danica when riding was no longer any fun. "Northern children want to see fine caves? Yes? No?" wondered Momo. "Northern children most certainly want to see fine caves. Yes, yes," said Pippi. Crocodile Island was a coral island. On the south side, the high coral cliffs plunged straight into the sea, and there were the most wonderful caves which had been dug out by the waves. Some were down by the waterline and filled with water, but there were others higher up on the cliffs, and there the Crocodile children were accustomed to play. In the largest cave, they kept a big supply of coconuts and other delicacies. To get there was quite an undertaking. First, they had to climb carefully down the steep side of the cliff and hang on to rocks which jutted out. Otherwise, they could have easily plunged down into the sea. Any place else on the island, that wouldn't have mattered, but at this particular spot, there were plenty of sharks who liked to eat little children. In spite of this danger, the Crocodile children had to stand guard and shout, "Shark! Shark!" as soon as they spotted a fin in the distance. In the big cave, the Crocodile children also kept a supply of shimmering pearls, which they had found in oysters. They used them to play marbles with, and had no idea that they would be worth any amount of money in Europe or America. Captain Longstocking used to take a few pearls along with him now and then, when he went off to buy supplies. He would trade the pearls for things he thought his subjects needed. But on the whole, he felt that his loyal Crocodiles were well off as they were, and the children happily continued to play marbles with the pearls. Anika was horror-stricken when Tommy said to her that she would have to climb along the cliff to the big cave. The first part wasn't so bad. It was quite a broad ledge to walk on, but it gradually got narrower, and the last few feet to the cave you had to scramble and climb and hang on the best you could. "Never," said Anika, "never!" To climb along a cliff where there was hardly anything to hold on to, and below, a sea filled with sharks waiting for you to fall down. Now that was not Anika's idea of fun. Tommy was annoyed. "No one should bring sisters along to the South Seas," he said as he scrambled along the cliff wall. "Look at me. You only have to go like this." There was a loud plop as Tommy fell into the water. Anika screamed. Even the Crocodile children were terrified. "Shark! Shark!" they cried as they pointed out to the sea. There was a fin clearly visible above the surface, heading straight in the direction of Tommy. There was another plop. That was Pippi jumping in. She reached Tommy about the same time as the shark did. Terrified, Tommy was screaming at the top of his lungs. He felt the shark's sharp teeth scrape against his leg. But just at that instant, Pippi grabbed the bloodthirsty beast with both hands and lifted him out of the water. "Shame on you," she said. The shark looked around, surprised and ill at ease. He wasn't able to breathe above the surface. "Promise to never, ever do that again, and I'll let you go," said Pippi gravely. With all her force, she flung him far out into the sea. He lost no time getting away from there and decided to head to the Atlantic Ocean instead. In the meantime, Tommy had managed to scramble up on a small plateau. There he sat trembling all over. His leg was bleeding. Then Pippi came up. She behaved very strangely. First she lifted Tommy up in the air. Then she hugged him so hard he lost his breath. Then all of a sudden, she let go of him and sat down on the cliff. She put her head in her hands and she cried. Pippi cried. Tommy and Danica and all the Kerkerdut children looked at her, surprised and frightened. "You cried because Tommy almost eaten up?" "No," said Pippi crossly as she wiped her eyes. "I cried because poor little hungry shark got no breakfast today." That is the end of Chapter 8. Make sure you join us tomorrow for Chapter 9, which is called Pippi Talks Sense to Jim and Buck. I'll see you later. Bye!